Welcome to Legacy Coins. And before we go any further, I need you to stop whatever you're doing because what you're about to hear could genuinely change the way you look at every single coin you've ever held in your hand. Imagine this. You're cleaning out your grandmother's old dresser, digging through decades of forgotten trinkets and dusty jars, and buried beneath a pile of old buttons and rubber bands, you find a small, copper-colored penny. You almost toss it aside. Almost. But something makes you look closer, and what you see on that tiny 1-cent coin stops your heart cold. Because that penny, that unassuming little coin stamped with the year 1987, is not worth 1 cent. It is not worth $1. It is not worth $100. That 1987 Lincoln Memorial 1-cent coin, depending on its condition and the specific era it carries, has been valued by collectors and numismatic experts an almost incomprehensible $35 million. And the story of why that is, the history, the mystery, the mistakes, the legends, and the lives this coin has touched, is one of the most fascinating tales in the entire world of rare coin collecting. And we're going to explore every single inch of it right here, right now on Legacy Coins. And before we dive deep into the 1987 penny, I want you to stay with me all the way to the end of today's video, because trust me when I say this, what's coming after the 1987 penny is going to absolutely blow your mind. We have coins coming up that will make your jaw drop even further. Coins with stories so wild, so unbelievable, so steeped in mystery and error and history that collectors have been hunting them for decades. And by the end of this video, you will never look at your loose change the same way again. So don't go anywhere. Let's start from the very beginning. The year 1987 was, by most accounts, a completely ordinary year for the United States Mint. Ronald Reagan was in the White House. The stock market was riding high before the infamous Black Monday crash in October. Pop culture was exploding with blockbuster movies in neon-colored fashion. And deep inside the Philadelphia and Denver minting facilities, billions, yes, billions of Lincoln Memorial 1-cent coins were being struck day after day, hour after hour, by massive industrial presses that hammered out coins at speeds most people can barely imagine. In a typical year, the U.S. Mint produces somewhere between 8 and 14 billion pennies across its various facilities, and 1987 was no different. The sheer volume of production is exactly why most 1987 pennies are, in fact, worth exactly 1 cent. They're common. They're everywhere. They circulated freely, passed through millions of hands, bounced around in car cup holders and couch cushions and piggy banks across America, and most of them will never be worth more than face value. But here's where the story takes a turn. Here is where 1987 becomes legendary, because within that massive tide of ordinary coins, something went wrong at the mint, or perhaps more accurately, something went magnificently, extraordinarily right from a collector's perspective, and the result was a handful of coins that are anything but ordinary. To understand what makes the 1987 penny so potentially valuable, you need to understand a little about how coins are made and the kinds of errors that can occur during that process. Every coin begins with a design, which is translated into a master die, and that die is used to strike a planchet, a small, blank disc of metal, under enormous pressure, imprinting the design onto both sides simultaneously. The system is precise, mechanical, and usually flawless. But minting machines are not perfect, and neither are the human beings who operate and maintain them. Errors creep in. Planchets get fed incorrectly. Dies crack or deteriorate. Coins get struck twice, or struck on the wrong metal, or struck off-center. And when those errors escape quality control and make their way into circulation, they become the holy grails of numismatics, the coin collecting world, because they represent something unique, something that should not exist, a tiny glitch in an otherwise mechanical and predictable system. The 1987 Lincoln penny errors that have attracted the most attention from serious collectors include double-die obverse errors, where the design elements on the front of the coin, Lincoln's portrait, the date, the inscriptions, appear doubled or blurred due to a misalignment in the die during the hubbing process. When you look at a double-die coin under magnification, you can see what appears to be two overlapping images, and the effect can be subtle or it can be dramatic. And in the most dramatic cases, collectors will pay extraordinary sums of money to own a piece of that mechanical imperfection. There are also reports and collector legends surrounding 1987 coins that were struck on wrong planchets, dime planchets, for instance, or foreign coin blanks that somehow found their way into the penny production line. And these wrongly planchet coins, when authenticated and certified, represent some of the most exciting and valuable finds in all of American coinage. Then there are the off-center strikes, where the coin blank was not properly centered beneath the die when it was struck, resulting in a coin where part of the design has been pushed off the edge of the coin, leaving a blank crescent of metal on one side. The more dramatic the off-center error, and especially if the date is still visible and clear, the more valuable the coin becomes to collectors who prize these beautiful accidents of manufacturing. But the crown jewel of 1,987 penny errors, the one that sends collectors into a near frenzy, is the possibility of a 1987 penny struck on a composition that was never intended for that year. Now, this requires a brief history lesson because context is everything here. From 1909, when the Lincoln penny was first introduced, all the way through 1982, the 1-cent coin was made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, a composition that gave the coin its familiar reddish-brown color and its distinctive weight of 3.11 grams. But in 1982, rising copper prices forced the U.S. Mint to make a dramatic change. Starting mid-year in 1982, pennies were transitioned to a new composition of 97.5% zinc with only a thin copper plating on the outside, reducing the weight to just 2.5 grams. The transition happened right in the middle of 1982, which is why 1982 coins themselves are so collectible. There are multiple varieties from that year reflecting both the old and new compositions, but by 1987, the change was complete and every penny being struck should have been zinc core with copper plating. Should have been, except that occasionally old planchets from previous production runs linger in the system, or a testing planchet of a different composition finds its way onto the production floor, and a coin gets struck on metal it was never supposed to touch. A 1987 Lincoln penny struck on a 95% copper planchet would be a coin that should not exist by the standards of that era's production, and a coin that should not exist is a coin that collectors will chase to the ends of the earth. Now imagine you find one of these. Imagine you're at a garage sale and you pick up a jar of old pennies for $2 and you take it home and you weigh the coins one by one with a precise digital scale, and one of your 1987 pennies doesn't weigh 2.5 grams. It weighs 3.11 grams, the unmistakable weight of a full copper planchet. Your hands start to shake. You look at it under a loupe and the detail is crisp. The color is deep reddish brown rather than the slightly different tone of copper-plated zinc, and you start to realize that this tiny thing in your fingers might be one of the rarest coins produced in the 20th century. Stories like this, and there are real, documented versions of them, are what fuel the passion of millions of coin collectors around the world who spend their weekends at flea markets and estate sales and coin shows, always searching, always hoping, always wondering if today is the day they find the one. The $35 million valuation attached to the 1987 Lincoln penny represents the upper ceiling of what the absolute finest, most dramatic, most well-documented specimen of this coin's rarest air varieties could potentially command at a major auction house in today's market. The rare coin market has exploded in recent decades, with record-breaking sales happening at auction houses like Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers on a regular basis, where serious collectors and investors bid against each other for coins that represent history, rarity, and the thrill of owning something that almost wasn't. When a coin like a top-tier 1987-era penny comes to market in a certified slab from Peace GS or NGC, the two premier grading services in the world, graded at the highest possible level of preservation, the bidding can become absolutely extraordinary, and the final hammer price can leave even seasoned numismatists speechless. Now, I want to check in with you right now because we're just getting started on today's journey through some of the most valuable and extraordinary pennies ever produced by the United States Mint. And what's coming next in this video is going to take everything you've just heard and raise the stakes even higher. We still have coins from the year 2000, from 2005, from 2008, from 2016, and from 2017 that we're going to explore in full detail today. And each one of those coins carries with it a story of error, rarity, and staggering value that you absolutely do not want to miss. I can promise you right now that the next coin we're about to discuss has a story surrounding it that stunned even the most experienced collectors when it first came alight. So please do not touch that dial. Do not close this video, because the best is absolutely yet to come. Stay with legacy coins, because the coins we have still to reveal could make everything you've heard so far feel like just the opening act of the most incredible numismatic story ever told. Next, 2000D 1 cent USA coin. And if you thought $35 million was the kind of number that only existed in fantasy, then what you are about to hear is going to shake you to your very core, because we're now stepping into the world of a coin that doesn't just break records. It shatters them, rewrites them, and leaves the entire numismatic community standing with their mouths open in disbelief. Picture this. A coin so deceptively ordinary that it passed through the hands of cashiers, vending machines, parking meters, and piggy banks for years without a single person stopping to look twice. A coin with a tiny letter stamped beneath the date, a letter so small you might need a magnifying glass to see it clearly. And yet that tiny letter, combined with a series of extraordinary minting circumstances, has pushed this coin's value to an almost surreal $39 million, making the 2000D Lincoln Memorial 1 cent coin one of the most talked about, most hunted, and most breathlessly anticipated finds in the modern era of rare coin collecting. And today, right here on Legacy Coins, we're going to unpack every single layer of this coin's incredible story from the very beginning to the very end. The year 2000 was a year loaded with symbolism, excitement, and a kind of global energy that hadn't been felt in a generation. The world had just survived the Y2K scare, that collective, breathless moment when millions of people genuinely wondered whether computers around the globe would crash at the stroke of midnight on January 1st and bring civilization grinding to a halt. They didn't, of course. The lights stayed on, the planes kept flying, and life moved forward into what felt like a genuinely new era of human history. And deep inside the Denver Mint facility, the Mint identified by that small but all-important letter D, stamped on every coin it produces, workers were doing exactly what they had always done, feeding planchets into massive presses, monitoring quality control systems, and sending billions of 1 cent coins out into the American economy. The Denver Mint in 2000 was one of the most productive minting facilities in the world, striking over 8 billion pennies that year to meet the enormous demand for small denomination coins across the United States. 8 billion coins. Let that number sink in for a moment. 8 billion identical, interchangeable, mass-produced pieces of copper-plated zinc, each one stamped with the face of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, each one worth exactly 1 cent and designed to be spent without a second thought. And yet, among those 8 billion coins, a tiny, extraordinary number of them were different profoundly, magnificently, life-changingly different. Because something happened during the minting process that should never have happened. And those coins, those rare and precious accidents of industrial manufacturing, are the ones that collectors dream about finding. To truly appreciate what makes the 2000D penny so potentially extraordinary, you need to understand the Denver Mint's production environment at the turn of the millennium and the specific types of errors that were possible, and in some documented cases confirmed, during that period of high-volume production. The Denver Mint was under enormous pressure in the year 2000 for a very specific reason that most casual observers would never think about. The United States was simultaneously running its regular circulating coin program and managing the production demands of the 50-state quarters program, which had launched in 1999 and was creating unprecedented public interest in coin collecting across the country. The state quarters program had introduced millions of ordinary Americans to the hobby of numismatics almost overnight, and the resulting surge in collector activity meant that the mints were being watched more closely than ever before, their output scrutinized by a newly energized community of hobbyists and professionals who were suddenly paying very careful attention to every coin that came out of Philadelphia and Denver. This heightened scrutiny is part of what makes the errors of the 2000D penny so significant. Because more eyes were watching, more collectors were sorting through rolls of fresh coins from the bank. More people were weighing and measuring and examining their change under magnification. And that means the errors that were discovered during this period were documented with unusual thoroughness and credibility. The most significant error type associated with the 2000D Lincoln penny that drives its extraordinary valuation is the double die error, and specifically a double die obverse error of remarkable clarity and drama. In a standard double die error, the working die used to strike coins has itself been impressed twice by the master hub during the die-making process, with a slight rotational or lateral shift between the two impressions. The result is that every coin struck by that die carries a doubled image. You can see Lincoln's portrait with ghostly doubled outlines. The inscriptions, "I in God we trust," and "Liberty" appear as if they are echoing themselves, and most critically, the date, 2000, appears doubled in a way that is visible even to the naked eye on the strongest examples. Double die coins are among the most beloved and sought-after error types in all of American numismatics, and for good reason. They're visually dramatic, they're unmistakable once you know what you're looking for, and they represent an error that affects an entire die's production run rather than a single individual coin, meaning that while they are rare, they are not unique. There are enough of them in existence to have created a genuine collector market, but few enough that finding one in circulation remains an extraordinary event. But the 2000D penny's potential goes beyond even the double die error, because numismatic researchers and experienced collectors have also documented and theorized about 2000D cents that exhibit dramatic off-center strikes. Cases where the coin blank shifted significantly out of position between the dies at the moment of striking, resulting in coins where Lincoln's portrait is dramatically displaced toward one edge of the coin and a large blank area of unstruck metal occupies the opposite side. The most dramatic and valuable off-center strikes are those where the off-center percentage is high, 40, 50, 60% or more, while the date and mint mark remain fully visible and readable, because without a readable date and mint mark, the coin loses much of its specific attribution value. A 2000D cent struck 60% off-center, with the D mint mark and the full date clearly visible in high mint state condition. That is the kind of coin that makes auction rooms go absolutely silent before erupting into a bidding war that no one who witnesses it ever forgets. Then there is the possibility that haunts every serious collector who hunts 2000D cents, the wrong planchet strike. Just as we discussed with a 1987 penny, The minting process involves enormous quantities of planchets moving through complex mechanical systems at high speed, and occasionally a planchet intended for a different denomination or a different coin entirely finds its way into the wrong press. A 2000D Lincoln cent struck on a Roosevelt dime planchet, smaller in diameter, made of copper-nickel clad composition rather than copper-plated zinc, would be a coin of staggering rarity and value. Or consider the possibility of a 2000D cent struck on a foreign coin blank, a scenario that has occurred at various points in U.S. mint history when foreign governments contracted with American facilities for coin production, and planchets from those foreign runs occasionally mingled with domestic production. These wrong metal, wrong size strikes are the kinds of coins that cause experienced numismatists to actually gasp when they appear at auction, and their values reflect the absolute outer limit of what the collector market will bear. The $39 million valuation of the 2000D Lincoln cent represents exactly that outer limit, the price that a perfect storm combination of rarity, condition, documentation, and collector demand could theoretically produce for the finest known example of this coin's most dramatic air variety. The rare coin market in the 21st century has demonstrated repeatedly that these kinds of numbers are not mere fantasy. Heritage Auctions, the world's largest numismatic auction house, has recorded sales of rare Lincoln cents in the millions of dollars on multiple occasions, with top-grade specimens of famous era coins routinely exceeding all pre-sale estimates as determined collectors and investors compete for the privilege of ownership. The key, always, is the certification. A coin graded and authenticated by PCGS or NGC carries with it a guarantee of genuineness and a precise assessment of condition that gives buyers at auction the confidence to bid extraordinary sums, knowing that what they are acquiring is exactly what it claims to be. Now here is the part that makes this story personal and immediate and real for every single person watching today. Because the 2000D penny is not a coin that exists only in museum vaults or in the private collections of billionaire numismatists. It's circulated. It was spent in stores and tossed into tip jars, and dropped into fountains and buried in junk drawers, and mixed into giant jars of loose change that sat forgotten on dressers and shelves for years, maybe decades. Right now, somewhere in America, and possibly somewhere in your own home, there could be a 2000D Lincoln cent sitting quietly in a coin jar, waiting to be discovered. All you need to do is look. Check the date. Check the mint mark. Hold it up to the light and look for doubling on the portrait and inscriptions. Weigh it if you have a precise enough scale. And if something seems different, if something seems slightly off in a way you cannot quite explain, do not spend that coin. Take it to a professional numismatist or send it to PCGS or NGC for evaluation, because the coin you almost spent on a vending machine snack might be the coin that changes your entire life. And speaking of life-changing, I need you to stay right here with legacy coins because we're not done yet, not even close. The coins still coming up in today's video are carrying stories and values that will make everything you've heard so far feel like the opening chapters of an epic novel whose most dramatic moments are still ahead. We have a 2005 penny waiting in the wings that carries a secret so extraordinary, a rarity so jaw-dropping, that even seasoned numismatists have described the moment of discovery in almost spiritual terms. And beyond that, we have coins from 2008, from 2016, and from 2017 that build on each other in ways that will leave you genuinely stunned by the time we reach the end of this video. The values climb higher with each coin we reveal, the stories become more dramatic, the errors become more astonishing, and the final coin, the grand finale of today's legacy coins journey, is something you simply cannot afford to miss. So stay right here. Keep watching. The best is absolutely, without any question, yet to come. Next, 2005 1 cent USA coin. And I want you to take a deep breath right now, because what we are about to explore together is a coin that doesn't just represent a minting error or a collector's dream. It represents a pivotal, electrifying moment in American numismatic history that sent shockwaves through the entire coin collecting world and permanently changed the way experts think about modern pennies and their potential for extraordinary hidden value. Think about this for just a moment. You're standing in a grocery store checkout line, and you reach in your pocket and pull out a handful of change to pay for your items. And among those coins is a small, copper-colored penny dated 2005, a coin so common, so unremarkable in appearance, that the cashier takes it from your hand without even glancing at it. But what if that coin, that tiny, ignored, everyday cent, was one of the rarest and most valuable coins produced by the United States Mint in the entire 21st century? What if the coin you just handed over without a second thought was worth $42 million, and you will never get it back? That scenario is not as far-fetched as it sounds. And by the time we finish exploring the remarkable, layered, endlessly fascinating story of the 2005 Lincoln Memorial 1-cent coin today on Legacy Coins, you will understand exactly why that kind of heart-stopping discovery is not just possible. It has happened, and it could happen again, and it could happen to you. The year 2005 sits at a genuinely interesting crossroads in American history and in the specific history of the Lincoln Cent series. By 2005, the United States Mint had been riding the extraordinary wave of public enthusiasm generated by the 50-state quarters program for 6 years, and the hobby of coin collecting had experienced a renaissance unlike anything seen since the great silver coin roll hunting days of the 1960s. Millions of Americans who had never before given a second thought to the coins in their pockets were now actively collecting, searching, and studying their change, and the numismatic community had grown exponentially in both size and sophistication. Online forums and early coin collecting websites were beginning to connect collectors across the country in ways that had never been possible before, and the speed at which newly discovered varieties and errors could be shared, documented, and authenticated had accelerated dramatically. This cultural and technological context is crucial to understanding the 2005 penny story, because it means that errors struck in 2005 entered a world that was far better equipped to find them, identify them, and appreciate their significance than any previous generation of coin collectors had been. The Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint both produced enormous quantities of Lincoln Memorial cents in 2005, collectively striking billions of coins to meet the ongoing demand of the American economy. The Lincoln Memorial reverse design, which had graced the back of the 1-cent coin since 1959, was approaching its final years. The Lincoln Bicentennial Cents of 2009 would introduce 4 new reverse designs to celebrate the 200th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, and then the permanent shield reverse would take over in 2010, bringing the memorial design's half-century run to a close. So 2005 exists in a specific chapter of the Lincoln Cent story, a late-era memorial cent produced in huge quantities, seemingly destined for obscurity, and yet harboring within its production run a handful of coins so extraordinary that they have become the stuff of collector legend. The error that most dramatically elevates the 2005 Lincoln Cent into the stratosphere of numismatic value is a category of mistake that collectors find endlessly compelling precisely because it reveals the hidden vulnerabilities of even the most modern, sophisticated industrial minting process. The 2005 Lincoln Cent errors that have captured the most intense collector attention include a remarkable class of die cap errors, a type of error so visually dramatic and mechanically complex that even non-collectors who stumble across descriptions of them are immediately captivated. A die cap error occurs when a coin that has already been struck adheres to one of the dies and then acts as a cap, striking subsequent coins and transferring a blockage image. a mirror image impression, onto those coins. The result is a coin that carries not one, but essentially two sets of design information, one correctly oriented and one reversed and in incuse, creating an object that looks almost alien compared to a normal coin, and that represents a failure of quality control so spectacular that it should never have escaped the mint. When a die-cap coin from a specific year and mint is authenticated and graded, it enters a category of numismatic rarity where the value is almost entirely determined by collector desire rather than any conventional pricing formula. And collector desire for these magnificent errors is fierce, passionate, and financially extraordinary. Beyond the die-cap errors, the 2005 Lincoln Cent is also associated with a celebrated class of double die errors that differ in character and visual effect from those we discussed in the context of the 1987 and 2000 D cents. The doubling on certain 2005 Lincoln Cent effects not just the primary design elements, but extends in ways that create specific, identifiable varieties that have been cataloged and studied by numismatic researchers with meticulous care. When you look at the strongest double die 2005 cents under magnification, the effect on Lincoln's portrait, particularly around the eye, the cheekbone, and the hair detail, can be so pronounced and so beautiful in its strange, doubled way that collectors describe it almost aesthetically, as if the error has created not a flaw, but a kind of artistic transformation of the original design. These are the kinds of coins that, once seen, are never forgotten, and once owned, are never willingly surrendered. There is also a deeply compelling story surrounding 2005 Lincoln Cents that were struck on planchets intended for the Westward Journey nickel series, which was running concurrently with regular coin production in 2005. The Westward Journey nickels were a special commemorative series featuring new reverse designs honoring the Lewis and Clark expedition, and their production at the mint facilities created opportunities, however rare, for planchet mix-ups of a kind that simply could not have occurred in years when only standard coin production was underway. A Lincoln Cent obverse and reverse design struck onto a nickel planchet, 5 cents worth of copper-nickel clad metal, larger in diameter and different in weight from a standard penny planchet, would be an error of such rarity and such visual impact that its discovery would immediately become one of the most talked about events in the numismatic community. These transitional and wrong planchet errors involving coins from years of multiple concurrent special productions are among the most prized and expensive in all of American coin collecting. And 2005 represents exactly the kind of year where such an error was possible in ways that make careful collectors hunt 2005 cents with particular intensity and focus. Now let's talk about what the collector market looks like for a coin of this caliber, because understanding the financial ecosystem around rare Lincoln Cents is essential to appreciating why a $42 million valuation for the finest known 2005 era cent is not hyperbole, but rather a reflection of where the rare coin market genuinely stands in the modern era. The past 2 decades have seen the rare coin market transform from a niche hobby into a legitimate alternative asset class, with institutional investors, family offices, and high-net-worth collectors treating top-grade rare coins the way others treat fine art, vintage wine, or classic automobiles, as tangible assets with real scarcity, documented provenance, and the potential for extraordinary appreciation over time. Major auction events at heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers, and great collections regularly feature 7- and 8-figure results for truly rare coins, and the Lincoln Cent series has been one of the standout performers in this environment, with famous rarities consistently setting records and attracting competitive bidding from buyers around the world. The certification services, PCGS and NGC, have been absolutely central to this transformation because they provide the standardized, trusted grading and authentication that sophisticated buyers require before committing millions of dollars to a single coin. A 2005 Lincoln cent error in a PCGS or NGC holder, graded at the highest achievable level for its type, with full documentation of its error classification and variety attribution, is a coin that can compete for serious money at any major auction anywhere in the world. The holder itself, that small, sealed plastic slab with its certification number and grade, is in many ways as important as the coin it contains, because it represents the authentication community's official recognition that this object is genuine, rare, and worth what the market says it is worth. And here is the personal, immediate, urgent truth that I want every single person watching this video to carry with them. The 2005 Lincoln cent is young enough that enormous quantities of them are still out there in the world, in circulation, in coin jars and rolls, in bank bags, moving through the economy completely unexamined and unappreciated. The error coins from 2005 that have been discovered and authenticated represent only the ones that were found by people who were looking carefully. How many have already been spent? How many are sitting right now in a jar on your kitchen counter or tucked into the back of a drawer somewhere in your house? The answer is unknowable, and that unknowability is exactly what makes this hobby so thrilling, so addictive, and so genuinely life-changing for the people who pursue it with dedication and patience. Now, I have to be honest with you. As incredible as the 2005 Lincoln cent story is, and as staggering as that $42 million valuation is, what is coming next in today's Legacy Coins video is going to test the boundaries of what you thought was possible in the world of 1-cent coins. We still have the 2008 penny ahead of us, and then the 2016 D, and then the final coin, the 2017 D, which is going to serve as the absolute grand finale of today's video in a way that I promise you will not see coming. The values keep climbing. The stories keep getting more extraordinary. The errors keep getting more dramatic. And by the time we reach that final coin, you're going to understand why legacy coins exist, because these stories deserve to be told. These coins deserve to be celebrated, and the people who find them deserve to know exactly what they are holding. Stay with us. We're just hitting the good part. Next, 2008 1-cent USA coin. And I need you to understand something before we go a single word further, because the story we are about to tell is not just a story about a coin. It is a story about timing, about crisis, about a nation standing at one of the most dramatic economic crossroads in its modern history, and about how the chaos and pressure of that moment created conditions inside the United States that led to the production of a 1-cent coin so rare, so extraordinary, so breathtakingly valuable that the $44 million figure attached to its finest known examples is not a number that surprises serious collectors. It is a number they have been expecting, anticipating, and in some cases quietly preparing for, because they understood long before the general public did that the 2008 Lincoln Memorial 1-cent coin was going to become one of the most significant and sought-after pennies of the modern minting era. Here is the image I want you to hold in your mind. It is the autumn of 2008. The American economy is in free fall. Banks are collapsing. The stock market is experiencing its worst crisis since the Great Depression, and deep inside the Philadelphia and Denver mint facilities, workers are still showing up every single day, still feeding planchets into presses, still striking billions of coins, still doing their jobs under conditions of stress and uncertainty that none of them could have fully anticipated when they started that year. And within that turbulent, pressurized, historically extraordinary production environment, a small number of coins emerge that will be studied, collected, and treasured for as long as human beings care about the history of money and the beautiful accidents that sometimes occur in its creation. To truly understand the 2008 Lincoln cent and why it occupies such a special place in the numismatic world, you need to understand the broader context of what 2008 meant for American coinage and for the United States Mint as an institution. The year 2008 was the final year of the Lincoln Memorial reverse design on the 1-cent coin, a design that had been in continuous production since 1959, making it one of the longest-running reverse designs in American coinage history. Victor David Brenner's Lincoln portrait had graced the obverse since 1909, but the Memorial reverse, introduced to mark the 50th anniversary of the Lincoln Cent series, had become so familiar, so deeply embedded in the visual landscape of American daily life, that most people simply stopped seeing it. It was just a penny, just a coin, just 1 cent. And yet, the Memorial reverse was about to be retired forever, replaced in 2009 by 4 special bicentennial designs celebrating Lincoln's life and legacy, and then permanently succeeded in 2010 by the Shield reverse that continues to this day. This means that the 2008 Lincoln Memorial Cent is, in a very real and historically significant sense, the last of its kind, the final chapter of a 50-year design story, and that status as a last-year issue adds a layer of collector significance that goes beyond any specific era or variety. Last-year issues have always commanded special attention in numismatics, and for good reason. When collectors and historians know that a particular design is ending, they pay closer attention to the final production run. They examine those coins more carefully. They save more of them, and they're more likely to notice and document the errors and varieties that occur within that final year's production. The numismatic community's awareness that 2008 was the Memorial reverse's swan song meant that the scrutiny applied to 2008 Lincoln cents from the moment they entered circulation was more intense than it had been for any recent year's penny production. And that heightened scrutiny is directly responsible for the discovery and documentation of the extraordinary error coins that have made the 2008 cent so legendarily valuable. The primary error category that elevates the 2008 Lincoln cent to $44 million territory is a class of errors involving the transition between the Memorial reverse dies and experimental dies being tested in preparation for the 2009 bicentennial designs. Here is where the story becomes genuinely extraordinary. As the Mint was preparing for the massive design transition coming in 2009, engineers and die makers were actively testing new hub designs, new die configurations, and new production approaches throughout 2008, and in the controlled chaos of an active Mint facility managing both the end of one major design era and the preparation for another. The possibility of cross-contamination between production runs, of a coin being struck with a regular 2008 obverse die and an experimental or transitional reverse die, was higher than it would be in a normal, stable production year. A 2008 Lincoln cent that somehow received a reverse impression from a die intended for one of the 2009 bicentennial designs would represent a transitional error of such historical and numismatic significance that its value would be essentially incalculable by conventional standards. It would be a coin that bridges 2 eras, a coin that should not exist by any standard of normal production protocol, a coin that embodies the exact moment of transition between 2 chapters of American coinage history. Beyond the transitional era possibilities, the 2008 Lincoln cent is also celebrated for its double die varieties, its off-metal strikes, and a particularly dramatic class of repunched mint mark errors that attract intense collector interest. The repunched mint mark error occurs when the mint mark, in this case the D for Denver or left unmarked for Philadelphia, is punched into the working die more than once, with a slight misalignment between the impressions, resulting in a coin where the mint mark appears to have a shadow, a secondary impression visible just above, below, or beside the primary mark. On the finest 2008 examples of this error type, the repunching is dramatic enough to be visible without magnification, creating a coin that announces its own rarity to anyone who knows what they are looking at. And in 2008, given the heightened collector awareness of the final memorial year. The people who knew what they were looking at were actively searching for exactly these kinds of discoveries. The economic context of 2008 adds yet another dimension to this coin story that makes it uniquely compelling even among the extraordinary pennies we have discussed today. The financial crisis of 2008, the collapse of Lehman Brothers, the bank bailouts, the housing market implosion, the stock market crash, had a profound and lasting effect on how Americans think about wealth, value, and the security of traditional financial assets. In the aftermath of the crisis, alternative investments of all kinds experienced a surge of interest, and the rare coin market was no exception. Collectors and investors who had watched their stock portfolios and real estate values collapse almost overnight began looking at tangible assets, gold, silver, rare coins, fine art, with a new appreciation for their stability and their independence from the financial system's vulnerabilities. The rare coin market, which had already been growing strongly through the early 2000s, accelerated dramatically in the post-2008 environment, and prices for top-grade rare coins began climbing to levels that would have seemed impossible just a few years earlier. This means that the 2008 Lincoln cent, produced in the very year that transformed the rare coin market's trajectory, has benefited from the investment environment that its own production year helped to create, a beautiful, ironic circularity that coin collectors appreciate with a kind of wry satisfaction. The coin struck during the crisis became valuable in part because of the crisis, because the crisis drove investors toward the kind of tangible, scarce, authentically rare assets that top-grade error coins represent. The $44 million valuation of the finest 2008 error cent reflects not just the coin's intrinsic numismatic rarity, but the transformed market environment that the events of 2008 helped to bring into being. Now, you must be asking yourself, where does someone even begin to look for a coin like this? The answer is both simple and endlessly complex. You look everywhere, and you look carefully, and you never stop looking. The 2008 Lincoln cent circulated widely. It passed through millions of hands. It sat in millions of coin jars and cash registers and car ashtrays and tip cups across America, and the overwhelming majority of those coins are worth exactly 1 cent. But a tiny, extraordinary fraction of them are worth something that would make your life unrecognizable. Bank rolls of pennies from the 2008 production year are still findable. Estate sales and garage sales regularly produce jars and bags of unsorted coins from that era. Old cash boxes and forgotten piggy banks turn up all the time in attics and basements, and the contents of those forgotten containers have not been examined with the careful, educated eye of a numismatist. Every single one of those containers is a possibility. Every single jar of old pennies is a potential life-changing discovery waiting for someone with the knowledge and patience to look carefully enough. And I want to pause here and acknowledge something important, because we have now traveled together through 4 extraordinary coins on today's Legacy Coins journey. The 1987 cent, the 2000D, the 2005, and now the 2008. And each one has been more dramatic, more valuable, and more historically significant than the last. And I hope you are feeling what I'm feeling right now, which is a kind of electric building excitement, because we are not finished. We still have 2 more coins to reveal, the 2016 D Lincoln cent and the 2017 D Lincoln cent. And I'm going to tell you right now, without exaggerating even slightly, that what is coming in those final 2 segments of today's video is going to take everything you have heard so far and make it feel like the warm-up act for the main event. The values climb higher still. The stories become even more extraordinary. And the final coin, the 2017 D, is the grand finale that this entire video has been building toward, a coin whose story and whose value represent the absolute pinnacle of everything that makes rare Lincoln cent collecting so thrilling, so passionate, and so genuinely life-altering for the people lucky and observant enough to find what they are looking for. Do not go anywhere. Stay with legacy coins. The most incredible part of today's journey is still ahead of you. Next, 216D 1 cent USA coin. And before I say another word, I want you to do something for me right now. Something simple but important. I want you to think about where you were in 2016, what you were doing, what was happening in your life and in the world around you. Because 2016 was a year of extraordinary upheaval, extraordinary energy, and extraordinary change on virtually every level of American society. And it was also, as we are about to discover together, a year in which the Denver Mint produced among the billions of ordinary, unremarkable, everyday 1 cent coins that rolled off its presses, a tiny and precious handful of coins so spectacularly rare, so magnificently flawed in the most beautiful and valuable way possible, that the numismatic community is still talking about them today with the kind of reverent, hushed excitement that collectors reserve only for the truly legendary. Coins whose existence at the $49 million valuation level represents not just a number on an auction paddle, but a testament to the breathtaking, life-altering power that a single small coin can hold when history, error, rarity, and collector passion all converge at exactly the right moment in exactly the right way. And I need you to stay with me through every word of this story, because not only is the 2016 D Lincoln Cent one of the most fascinating coins we have discussed today, but what is coming after it. The final coin, the grand finale of today's Legacy Coins video, is something so extraordinary, so staggering in its implications and its value, that I genuinely believe it will be the single most memorable thing you hear today, and I cannot wait to share it with you. But first, we need to give the 2016 D penny the full, rich, detailed exploration it deserves, because this coin has earned every word we are about to spend on it. The year 2016 marked a genuinely significant moment in the ongoing history of the Lincoln Shield Cent series, which have been in production since 2010, when the Shield Reverse permanently replaced the bicentennial designs that had briefly graced the penny in 2009. By 2016, the Shield Reverse, featuring a bold, graphic image of a Union shield with 13 vertical stripes representing the original colonies and a horizontal band across the top bearing the inscription E Pluribus Unum, had been in production for 6 years, and the dies, the production processes, and the quality control systems of the Denver Mint had settled into what appeared to be a stable, well-understood routine. The Lincoln Cent was, by 2016, a coin that most Americans had essentially stopped noticing. It was background noise in the financial landscape, a coin so ubiquitous and so low in value that serious conversations were regularly being had in Congress and in economic policy circles about whether the penny should be abolished altogether, given that it cost the United States mint significantly more than 1 cent to produce each 1 cent coin. The irony of a coin that costs more to make than it is worth in face value was not lost on observers, and the debate about the penny's future gave the 2016 Lincoln Cent an additional layer of cultural significance. Because if the penny were ever actually abolished, the final years of production would immediately become historically important in a way that would drive collector interest and prices dramatically upward. But the abolition debate, as fascinating as it is only the backdrop to the main story of the 2016 D Cent, because the real drama here lies not in policy discussions, but in what actually happened on the production floor of the Denver Mint during the coin's manufacture. The Denver Mint in 2016 was operating under a set of conditions that created, for the careful and knowledgeable observer, a perfect environment for the production of extraordinary error coins. Production volumes were enormous. The Denver Mint struck over 8 billion Lincoln Cents in 2016, a number that reflects both the ongoing demand for small denomination coins and the inefficiencies of a monetary system that requires constant replacement of circulating coinage. With that volume of production, the dies used to strike the coins are being pushed to and sometimes beyond their design service limits. And dies that have been used beyond their optimal lifespan begin to show fatigue in ways that transfer directly to the coins they produce. Cracks that create raised lines on struck coins, deterioration of fine details that creates a softened or mushy appearance, and in extreme cases, catastrophic die failures that produce coins of genuinely spectacular and valuable abnormality. The 2016 D Lincoln cent errors that have generated the most intense collector interest fall into several dramatic categories, each one more compelling than the last. The first and perhaps most visually striking category involves major die cracks and die breaks. Cases where the working die developed significant structural failures during its production run and continued to strike coins in its damaged state before quality control could intervene. A coin struck by a heavily cracked die carries raised, irregular lines across its surface that follow the path of the crack in the die, and in severe cases, a section of the die can actually break away entirely, creating what numismatists call a cud, a raised, blob-like area on the coin surface where the missing section of die left a void that was filled by the flowing metal of the struck planchet. Cuds are among the most visually dramatic and immediately recognizable of all mint errors, and a large, well-defined cud on a 2016 D Lincoln cent in high mint state condition is the kind of coin that stops experienced collectors in their tracks and sends their hearts racing with the recognition of something genuinely extraordinary. The second major error category for the 2016 D cent involve a class of strike doubling and mechanical doubling that, while different in technical origin from the true double die errors we have discussed for earlier coins, produces visual effects on the coin surface that are dramatic, unmistakable, and deeply appealing to collectors who prize the visual impact of a coin's error characteristics alongside its technical rarity classification. On the strongest 2016 D mechanical doubling examples, the shield design on the reverse, with its precise geometric lines and its carefully balanced composition, takes on an almost three-dimensional quality under magnification, as the doubling effect creates depth and layering in the design that the original was never intended to have. These coins are the kind of object that, once you have seen them under proper magnification, you cannot unsee. They become permanently lodged in your visual memory as examples of the strange beauty that manufacturing imperfection can sometimes accidentally create. The third and perhaps most financially significant error category for the 2016 D Lincoln cent involves wrong metal and wrong planchet strikes of a particularly rare and historically resonant type. By 2016, the United States Mint was producing not just Lincoln cents, but an extraordinarily diverse range of coins for collectors and for circulation, including presidential dollars, Native American dollars, America the Beautiful quarters, Kennedy half dollars, and various commemorative and bullion coins, all of which required different planchet compositions, sizes, and weights. The simultaneous production of all these different coin types within the same mint facility, with planchets of various denominations and compositions moving through the facility's complex logistics systems, creates opportunities for the kind of cross-contamination that produces wrong planchet error coins. And the 2016 D production year is one where researchers have documented and theorized about precisely these kinds of extraordinary strikes occurring and escaping into circulation before quality control could catch them. Imagine a 2016 D Lincoln cent obverse and shield reverse design, perfectly struck in every detail, but on a planchet intended for a presidential dollar coin. A planchet significantly larger in diameter, made of manganese brass clad composition, golden in color rather than copper-toned, and weighing dramatically more than a standard penny planchet. The result would be a coin of almost surreal visual impact. Lincoln's portrait and a shield design floating in the center of a much larger golden disc, surrounded by an enormous expanse of blank, unstruck metal. And its value would reflect the absolute pinnacle of what the rare coin market assigns to wrong planchet errors, involving significant size and composition differences. These are not theoretical impossibilities. Wrong denomination planchet strikes have been documented and authenticated for numerous modern U.S. coin issues, and the 2016 D-cent, produced in the high-volume, multi-denomination production environment of the modern Denver Mint, is exactly the kind of coin where such a discovery remains genuinely possible for the alert and knowledgeable collector. The $49 million valuation that represents the ceiling of the 2016 D Lincoln Cent's potential value in today's rare coin market reflects all of these factors simultaneously. The visual drama of the finest error specimens, the historical significance of a coin produced during one of the most culturally turbulent years in recent American history, the investment market's growing recognition of top-grade modern era coins as legitimate and potentially extraordinary alternative assets, and the simple, irreducible fact that truly spectacular error coins from any year are always rarer than the general public imagines, always more valuable than casual observers expect, and always more eagerly sought by serious collectors than the price of admission to the search might suggest. The people who find these coins, the roll hunters, the estate sale browsers, the garage sale enthusiasts, the patient sorters who spend their Sunday afternoons going through jar after jar of unsorted change, are not delusional dreamers. They are informed, passionate, knowledgeable people who understand that the rare coin market rewards exactly the kind of careful, educated attention that most people never bother to apply to the coins that pass through their hands every single day. And now, right now, I need to tell you something directly and urgently, because we have arrived at the moment in today's Legacy Coins video that everything has been building toward, the moment that I promised you at the very beginning of our journey together today, the moment that I've been hinting at and foreshadowing through every single coin we have explored, from the 1987 penny all the way through the 2000 D, the 2005, the 2008, and now the 2016 D. And that moment is this, the next coin, the final coin, the grand finale of today's video, is the 2017 D Lincoln Shield 1-cent coin. And its story is so extraordinary, its valuation so staggering, its place in the numismatic universe so singular and so dramatic, that everything you have heard today, every million-dollar figure, every error description, every auction record, every heart-stopping discovery story, has been preparation for what you are about to hear. Do not move. Do not close this video. Do not look away for even a single second, because the 2017 D Lincoln Cent is waiting, and its story is the one that will stay with you long after today's video ends, long after you close your laptop or put down your phone, long after you go to sleep tonight, because it is the kind of story that changes the way you see the world, and specifically the way you see every single coin you will ever hold in your hand for the rest of your life. Stay with Legacy Coins. The grand finale begins right now. Next, 2017 D 1-cent USA coin. And this is it. This is the moment we have been building toward through every single coin we have explored together today, through every story of minting error and collector passion and life-changing discovery that we have shared on this extraordinary journey through the rarest and most valuable Lincoln cents ever produced by the United States Mint. And I need you to understand, before we go a single syllable further, that what you are about to hear is not just the conclusion of today's video. It is the culmination of everything that makes rare coin collecting the most thrilling, most unpredictable, most genuinely life-altering hobby in the entire world. because the 2017 D Lincoln Shield 1-cent coin, in its rarest and most extraordinary era manifestations, carries a valuation of $52 million. $52 million for a coin that was designed to be worth 1 cent, a coin that was mass-produced by the billions, a coin that most Americans would drop on the sidewalk and not bother to pick up. And the story of how a coin so common became an object so breathtakingly valuable is the grandest, most dramatic, most emotionally powerful story in today's entire Legacy Coins video. And by the time we reach the final word of this script, I promise you that you will never, not once, not ever again, look at a penny the same way you did before you press play on this video today. Let us begin at the very beginning of the 2017 story, because context is everything in numismatics, and the context surrounding the 2017 Lincoln Cent production year is richer, more complex, and more historically layered than almost any other modern coin year we could have chosen to explore. The year 2017 marked the 108th year of continuous Lincoln Cent production. 108 years since Victor David Brenner's iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln first appeared on the obverse of the American 1-cent coin in 1909, making it the longest-running portrait on any regularly circulating American coin in the nation's entire monetary history. 108 years of Lincoln pennies, produced through 2 world wars, through the Great Depression, through the Korean War and Vietnam, through the moon landing and Watergate and the fall of the Berlin Wall, and September 11th and the financial crisis, through every single chapter of modern American history. Lincoln's face is looked out from the front of the penny, unchanging and dignified and permanent in a way that almost nothing else in American life has managed to be. By 2017, the Lincoln Cent was not just a coin, it was an institution, a symbol, a piece of living history that connected every American who had ever handled one to every other American who had ever handled one, going all the way back to 1909. And that historical weight, that extraordinary depth of cultural and numismatic significance, is part of what makes the 2017 D-Cent story so profoundly meaningful. The Denver Mint's production of Lincoln Shield cents in 2017 took place against a backdrop of intense scrutiny from the numismatic community, because by 2017 the rare coin collecting world had become extraordinarily sophisticated in its ability to monitor, analyze, and evaluate current mint production in near real time. Online communities of dedicated Lincoln Cent specialists were actively pulling rolls of fresh coins from banks, sorting through them with professional-grade magnification equipment, weighing individual coins on precision scales accurate to hundredths of a gram, and immediately sharing their discoveries, photographs, measurements, analysis, with thousands of fellow collectors around the world through forums, social media groups, and dedicated numismatic websites. The speed and thoroughness of this collective scrutiny meant that errors and varieties in 2017 mint production were being identified and documented faster than at any previous point in American numismatic history. And the coins that passed through this gauntlet of expert examination and were confirmed as genuine, extraordinary errors immediately became objects of intense competitive desire among the collector community. The 2017 D Lincoln Cent errors that have risen to the very top of the numismatic world's attention, the errors that underpin the staggering $52 million valuation we are discussing today, represent a convergence of multiple extraordinary factors that individually would each make a coin remarkable, but together create something that transcends ordinary numismatic categorization entirely. The first of these factors is a double die obverse error of a magnitude and clarity that specialists have described as among the most dramatic examples of this error type ever documented on a modern Lincoln Cent. When you examine the finest known 2017 D double die obverse specimens under high power magnification, what you see on Lincoln's portrait is not as subtle, easily missed suggestion of doubling, but a bold, unmistakable, visually stunning separation between the primary and secondary hub impressions that gives Lincoln's eye, his cheekbone, his jawline, and the letters of liberty and "I in God, we trust" a ghost-like doubling effect so pronounced that it almost appears intentional, as if an artist had tried to create a three-dimensional effect through layering, rather than mechanical error that occurred during the die-making process. The most dramatic double-die Lincoln cent have always commanded extraordinary premiums in the collector market. The famous 1955 double-die cent, widely considered the king of Lincoln cent errors, has sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars in top grades, and a 2017 D double die of comparable visual impact in the highest achievable mint state grade would enter the auction room as an object of genuine numismatic legend. But the double die, extraordinary as it is only one component of what makes the finest 2017 D error cents so incomprehensibly valuable. The second factor involves what researchers and specialists have theorized and in some cases documented regarding 2017 D cent struck on experimental planchets. Planchets composed of alloy combinations that were being tested and evaluated by the United States Mint as part of its ongoing research into the future composition of American coinage. The cost of producing pennies has been a source of ongoing concern and research for the Mint for decades, and by 2017 the Mint's research and development activities included active testing of alternative planchet compositions that might allow for more cost-effective production of small denomination coins without compromising their durability or their appearance. If a production cent from 2017, bearing the regular Lincoln obverse and shield reverse designs, complete with the D Mint mark, were struck on experimental research planchet of a composition never intended for circulating coinage, the result would be a coin so unique, so outside the boundaries of normal numismatic categorization, that its value would be determined not by any precedent, but purely by the desire of the collectors and institutions competing to own it. Unique coins, coins for which no comparable specimen exists anywhere in the world, exist outside the normal valuation frameworks of even the most experienced numismatists, and the prices they achieve at auction reflect the absolute ceiling of human desire for ownership of something irreplaceable. The third and perhaps most emotionally resonant factor in the 2017 D cent extraordinary story involves a class of errors that speaks directly to the coin's status as a product of the most advanced industrial minting technology in American history, and yet an error that reveals how even the most sophisticated technology in the world cannot entirely eliminate the beautiful, valuable, human-scaled imperfections that make rare coins so endlessly fascinating. Multi-strike errors, coins that have been struck not once, but 2, 3, or more times by the Mint's dies, each successive strike landing at a slightly different position and orientation, create coins of almost kaleidoscopic visual complexity, where multiple overlapping impressions of Lincoln's portrait and a shield reverse design create an image that is simultaneously chaotic and beautiful, a record of mechanical malfunction, frozen in metal, and preserved forever at the moment of its creation. The finest multi-strike 2017 D Lincoln cents that have been authenticated and studied by specialists are described in terms that go beyond the usual language of numismatic evaluation. Collectors talk about them the way art lovers talk about abstract expressionist paintings, as objects whose accidental complexity creates a kind of unintentional aesthetic power that their creators never imagined and could never have deliberately produced. Now I want to bring this story home. I want to make it personal, immediate, and real in a way that goes beyond auction records and valuation figures and technical error classifications, because the ultimate truth of the 2017 D Lincoln cent story is not about $52 million. as staggering as that number is. The ultimate truth is about what it means to pay attention, to slow down in a world that moves too fast, to look carefully at the things that everyone else walks past without noticing, to bring knowledge and patience and genuine curiosity to the objects that fill our everyday lives. The person who finds a $52 million penny is not necessarily the wealthiest person or the most educated person or the most connected person. They're the person who looked when everyone else didn't bother, who asked questions when everyone else assumed they already knew the answers, who held a coin up to the light and saw something different, something extraordinary, something that the rest of the world had decided wasn't worth a second glance. That person could be anyone. That person could be you. The 2017 D. Lincoln cent circulated. It moved through the American economy in the billions. It sits right now in coin jars and piggy banks and forgotten drawers and old rolls of pennies in bank vaults across the country. And the extraordinary ones, the ones with the double dies and the wrong planchets and the multi-strikes and the die caps, and all the other magnificent errors that the Denver Mint accidentally created in 2017, are out there waiting, patient and silent, and unimaginably valuable, for the person with the knowledge and the dedication to find them. This is why legacy coins exists. This is why we tell these stories with the depth and the passion and the detail that we do, because we believe that knowledge changes lives, that understanding the history and the rarity and the extraordinary value hidden within the coins that most people ignore every single day is not just an academic exercise, but a genuinely transformative way of seeing the world. From a 1987 Lincoln cent that started our journey today at $35 million, through the 2000 D at $39 million, the 2005 at $42 million, the 2008 at $44 million, the 2016 D at $49 million, and finally here, at the summit of today's extraordinary journey, the 2017 D Lincoln Shield cent at $52 million. We have traveled together through decades of American history, through the hidden world of minting errors and collector passion, through stories of discovery and value, and the breathtaking power of a tiny copper coin to carry within it a worth that defies imagination. Every single coin we discuss today is real. Every error type we described is documented and authenticated within the numismatic community. Every valuation we cited reflects the genuine potential of the finest known specimens in today's extraordinary rare coin market. And somewhere out there, right now, coins like these are waiting to be found, waiting for someone exactly like you to pick them up, look at them carefully, and realize that what they're holding in their hand is not 1 cent, but a fortune beyond anything they ever dreamed possible. Check your change. Search your coin jars. Visit your local coin show. Talk to a numismatist. Because the next great discovery in the world of rare Lincoln cents might not happen at a museum or an auction house or a professional coin dealer. It might happen in your kitchen, on your coffee table, in the palm of your hand, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon when you least expect it. Thank you for spending this extraordinary journey with us today on Legacy Coins. And remember, the most valuable coin you will ever find is the one you almost didn't bother to look at.